Anyway, on this live stream, which is already like 30 minutes, time flies, I want to show you two more things about Laravel Pail, okay? And that's the origin of the log, okay? So far, we have seen a couple of things here. One is that when we are getting the request from the HTTP layer or HTTP origin, we get to see that was a GET request on this particular endpoint, and we get to see information about the authentication stuff. But I want to show you something a little bit different, which is when the request comes from the console, for example. So something we are going to do here is that we are going to, first of all, remove all this stuff. And I'm going to just copy this, throw new exception to my console layer, okay? So obviously I have this artisan command inspire, which in case you don't know, is a very cool command that gives you a beautiful, inspiring code in the morning. However, what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to just, instead of showing you that code, I'm going to just type hi from inspire, okay? Okay, so typically what I expect to happen is that if I type PHP artisan inspire, I see that exception on the terminal. Now, sometimes you have scheduled commands or cron executing this artisan commands, and they may actually fire logs and you want to see them. So something I can do is just open a new tab here, and I'm going to type PHP artisan Pail. And I'm going to run PHP artisan inspire on the different tab, and I get to see on the Pail tab that I get hi from inspire. Now, this says hi from inspire, but sometimes you have, I don't know, query exceptions, some really complicated stuff, and you don't know where it's coming from. So thanks to Pail, you get to see that that thing is coming from the console.php line 18. In addition, you get to see the exact command that fired up that exception, which was artisan inspire, which is pretty cool in my opinion. And obviously, all this stuff works with regular logs as well. Okay, so if I type PHP artisan inspire, I get to see the info message coming from the artisan inspire console, which I think is pretty cool. Now, what I need from you guys on the HTTP layer, but also on the console layer, if you think that any other kind of information should be on this section right here, which is kind of the context of the exception, as you can see, this exception or info message is coming from the artisan inspire. So if you think that we can add any other context to this particular section right here, just let me know. Obviously, this is coming from the artisan inspire command, but we may have like Q jobs, for example. So I want to show you PHP artisan Pail coming from also Q jobs. I see Bruno saying line numbers. So let me tell you that when you're working with exceptions, you get to see the exact line number. Unfortunately, when working with regular info messages, you don't know the origin of that info message, okay? So that's kind of something we cannot work with. Let me show you Q jobs, because that's actually also awesome as well. So I'm going to just clear this terminal, and I'm going to create a new Q job. So I'm going to just type PHP artisan Q actually make job process podcast, and as you can see, obviously we have our process podcast created. I'm gonna just go to my console layer, and I'm gonna just dispatch something from it. I'm gonna just type dispatch new app jobs process podcast. Okay, so I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna configure my queues. I'm going to go to my .env file, and for the queue connection, I'm going to use the database. For the database connection, I'm going to use SQLite. Dudes, by the way, I'm going to tell you a secret. I think SQLite should be the default driver of Laravel regarding the database. People, SQLite is so overrated. You know what I mean? Underrated, right? I don't know how people are not using it like for everything, you know? It's just so good, so simple. And let me tell you something. Backups with SQLite is about just drag and drop the file. How crazy is that? You just have to copy the file, put in your desktop or whatever, and that's it. Backup is done. How crazy that is, right? So I love SQLite, and I don't know why not everyone is using it, you know? You need to have a real reason to not use SQLite, you know? Anyway, exactly, Mary. Like, you agree, and I can see that also Crowley agrees. I'm thinking about just using SQLite for everything. Dude, you need to have a really good reason to not use SQLite, in my opinion. It's just so convenient, you know? Anyways, I'm going to use SQLite now. I'm going to type PHP artisan migrate. Obviously, thanks to Laravel, is telling me that SQLite database do not exist, and if I would like to create it, and the answer is yes. And I can also see that we don't have the queue stuff yet. Why is that? Oh, because I need to type PHP artisan queue table, I think. There we go. So let's just migrate that. And now we have our jobs table, and we finally can use the database driver for our queues. Now, that being done, something I can do is type PHP artisan queue work, I think. Okay, so we have our queue work working as expected. I can type PHP artisan Pail. Okay, and in a different tab, I can simply type PHP artisan inspire. Now, when I type PHP artisan inspire, because we are dispatching this process podcast, typically I expect the process podcast happening here, which is. So that's working as expected. Obviously, at this moment, the process podcast is fully empty, so we don't have logs to display. So Pail should be empty, which it is. But I can type throw new exception, my message from QJobs. Okay. Okay, that's done. And before we actually unveil this stuff, let me just read a little bit the chat. Would it be cool to have an option to clear the terminal screen between requests and only see newest requests? I mean, something like npm run watch and live streaming only the current request. That's interesting. So you mean pretty much having the terminal being cleared every time we have a different context, right? Because if I'm visiting the slash users, then you want to clear the terminal and just display logs concerning that request. That can be an option. I'm not sure if I'm fully into it, but that could be an option indeed. Christopher is saying for an e-commerce with the terms of records too. So that's the thing. People typically think when talking about proposals of SQLite by default or even other stuff that everyone will build applications like e-commerce stuff or a SaaS, you know. But the reality is that people build small stuff with Laravel, with PHP. The most of developers build small stuff with it. And SQLite is a very good option for that, you know. I hear that Turso has got an insane performance with SQLite. Well, I don't know what Turso is about. I'm sorry. In my opinion, it is totally off topic. There is a lot of good business reasons for heavier DBs like Postgres, but especially for small projects and tutorials, I wish there more emphasis on it. SQLite is easier to look at code performance and have everything just work at first. That's true. Like for me, a good benefit of it is that it just works, you know. You could see that I could set up a SQLite database in probably less than 10 seconds. So that for me, that's a very good convenience that I'm not ready to not use, you know. I just love it. Okay, so just read the chat. Let's now get to see this stuff in action on the queue. So again, I'm throwing an exception from the process podcast. And what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to refresh my queue worker just in case, And I'm going to also refresh Laravel Pail. And I'm going to write PHP Artisan Inspire so we can get the job being queued. So then it gets processed by the queue worker, and the queue worker typically will fail this job because we have now this new exception. So let's get that running. I'm going to just type PHP Artisan Inspire. The job was queued. I get to see that the job was running, but it failed. And of course, if I want to see the reason, I get to see this stuff on the console. My message from the queue jobs, I get to also to see that this is coming from the queue work command, which is pretty cool. The queue is a default queue. So if you were to have more than one queue, like emails or the queue priority, which is something that a lot of people have, you get to see that information as well on the terminal. In addition, I get to see that the original job class, okay? In this case, the exception is coming right from that particular file. However, sometimes, especially when trying to access a colon that does not exist, or anything that is not throwing an exception directly from that class file, you now get to see that stuff thanks to this small context here. So again, just like HTTP, regular console, or queues, if you think that any other context information should be right there on the bottom, just let me know. And I think that's it for this showcase. So I've pretty much show you everything about this new package. It's not a big package, but I think it's a very convenient one. And people are excited about it. So really happy about how this turned out because it was pretty much a 1-week project. The origin of this project was Jeffrey Way's tweet. So Jeffrey Way told on Twitter that, or X now, that he wished to have a way of having this PHP Artisan tail stuff, and I told Taylor, I think we can crack this up very quickly. And Taylor told me yes, so now it's pretty much done. Happy how he turned it out, huh? So let's read the chat and then close the stream off for today. And let me know, meanwhile, what do you think about these streams? Do you like these streams? Do you like the format of this stream? Was the music okay? Was my voice okay? Was the content of the stream okay as well? So what do you mean about reading the chat here? Aftadil says, what do you mean about small project? It really depends, but I would say any project that does not have huge content of reads on the database. Reads and writes, by the way, especially writes. If you have like a small pizza, website, or I don't know, man, something really small that doesn't have a lot of concurrent users, probably like a blog even, a blog, just your own personal blog, or something that doesn't have a lot of traffic, especially a lot of writes, I would say SQLite is pretty much a good idea. Okay, so what do we have now? Mary says, MVP's demo, internal automation, especially internal automation. That's a very good point. I'm also really been liking Sushi, and I believe SQLite drives it. SQLite is on every Android. Well, I didn't know. SQLite apparently is on every Android, and it works surprisingly scale when it's not too large. Exactly. Crowley is saying, this is really cool, Nuno. I think I want to try it on my next project. Oh, well, thank you. You can also try it on existing projects if you want. Christopher is asking me if I did use past PHP. And yes, do you guys want to see the test suite? If you guys want to see the test suite, just let me know and I will show you that in 2 minutes, okay? Meadows is asking, any chance of receiving Pail installed by default on Laravel? You know what, Meadows? We have discussed that a little bit internally. And the reality is that if you are using something like Telescope, for example, probably Pail doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Because Telescope gives you this all this information we are seeing, and even a little bit more directly from the browser, But the benefit of something like Pale versus Telescope is that Telescope requires you to have a database, will be a little bit heavy in production, It's more recommended for dev development, and Pale works even on production without any kind of problem at all. Crowley was saying, I'm not on Twitter anymore, but it was nice to see you, Nuno, on the stream. Thank you so much. More streams. Love your work. Thank you. DF is saying, thanks for doing the stream at the time that is good for watching Australia. Usually they are on a terrible time. I'm European, so I'm from Portugal, and my energy is here, especially in the morning. On the afternoon, I kind of want to lay low a little bit, so that's why I'm thinking about doing this stuff eventually, if I do more, always in the morning. Mary is saying, I wanted to say that this is a wonderful project and very inspiring and helpful. Thank you all, and I hope to see more streams. Thank you. Albert is saying, I'm a programmer. How to decide how to structure a service module, and seems to have difficult choosing the right way. Alberto, you are not the only one. That's probably a content for another live stream, though. But I feel that a lot of people, even a lot of people really have that difficulty as well, because it really depends. You need to have really a lot of experience with big packages. So it's not a question that only you have, you know what I mean? Very cool idea of making fast streams like that. Can I make this a little bit bigger? Oh, I can. Perfect. Very cool idea of making fast streams like that. The only thing I will remember about the Pale package. Second thing is a good motivation for me to work. Thank you, Macied. You are great. No, you are great. Hi, Nuno. How I convince my team to use Laravel instead of Next.js? I've really tried. Dude, I don't know what to say to you, but if you really want to make things done, I recommend you choose Laravel. It's the most productive stack in the world. And yeah, I don't know what else to say to you about that. Please talk to me more about Lara Stan. Maybe in another live stream, if you don't mind. I'd love to see build stuff live. Thank you so much. Thanks for the stream. And that was the last comment. And yeah, thank you all for coming to this live stream. Thanks for the chat and for writing all those messages. I hope you guys enjoy Laravel Pail as much as I'm enjoying building it. We are just pretty much waiting for Kaneko to build the logo for the project. Kaneko, if you don't know, is a friend of mine that pretty much does all the logos for the projects I'm working on. And he is really good regarding building logos, and I'm just waiting for his logo before releasing the beta V1. And once the beta V1 is out, we are going to let the project marinate a little bit before releasing the stable version, which then will have documentation on the Laravel is official website. Okay? That being said, thank you so much for coming to this live stream, and I see you all next time.